Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to House of Footy. It's your boy Ray, and with me, I got Mac.
What's good?
And of course, welcome back, Gio.
What is good, guys? I'm back. Glad to be back.
So we have a full house today, and we're back covering the action from this weekend's Premier League. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Before we get into it, don't forget to follow us on our social media, both on X and Instagram. Our handle is at @house_of_footy. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to us. We are on both Spotify and YouTube. And lastly, feel free to get in touch with us via email. We love hearing from you guys, and we want you guys getting involved. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. Let's get straight into the action. Mac, the headline game for this weekend was always going to be Arsenal-Man City. Arsenal ultimately got the win in a match that I think the result has a lot of an impact on how the league will take place, but the game didn't, I think, live up to expectation in terms of action. So let's hear it from you first. How did you see the game?
Overall, it felt like it maybe this analogy might make sense, is where it's kind of the boxers, two heavyweights in the last round. It felt like they were both swinging at each other, missing, kind of stuttering around, slipping up, maybe even in some ways at peak form, because it felt like this game where both teams, Arsenal and Man City, were canceling each other out. Felt like the whole game was played at the middle of the park, the middle of the pitch, and kind of not many chances were created. There wasn't many opportunities out wide for players. They were just trying to kind of force the ball down the middle, down in the opponent's throat, and see if they were able to create something there. And no one really did. There was very few kind of, I would say, even grade B chances, no grade A at all overall. So I feel like, in terms of the game, I think you put it correctly, is where there wasn't as much excitement built into this fixture, but the impact of this fixture, this game, I think is going to be felt definitely for the rest of this year, because it further opens up the conversation of what this Premier League race is going to be for this year. It further cements Arsenal having not, I think, beaten Man City in the last 12 games in the Premier League. Arteta never won as a manager against Man City. So pulling up a win at Arsenal, keeping a clean sheet as well, stopping Haaland, who was so distressed that he has to drop the Lakama celebration at the end of the game. You know, it's sometimes you got to do what you got to do. I think overall, the key takeaway points for me is the defensive side for Arsenal, where they played very, very well. Coming against the best team in Europe. Yes, they were both without key players. Saka missing for Arsenal, KDB and Rodri missing for Man City. But the way that they're able to shut kind of everybody down on Man City, where they only had one shot on target, 4 shots in total in the entire game. Erling Haaland did not register a shot. And of course, we're going to talk about Arsenal's defense. We're going to start with the big boy, William Saliba. He won 100% of his duels and completed 97% of his passes against Man City. Absolutely grade A, keeping early Haaland in his pocket. And I think the clip that symbolizes it, I think it's in the first half, where you feel like Haaland's about to go on that kind of counter break where he potentially can get on a breakaway, and Saliba just body checks from the floor, play on, and he was down pretending to be hurt. Saliba kept on with possession, and that's just kind of what it was. So overall, after the game, I was buzzing a little bit, probably what caused my headache, but here we are. But again, like I said, I think that there's a lot of things that we can take away from this game. But of course, I wish maybe there was a little bit more kind of meat on the bone of excitement in some ways, a little bit more drama, if you will. But yeah, very happy with the result.
Yeah, I think exactly the way you put it. For me, the way I saw this game, and I'm not sure if you guys have come across this, maybe the listeners have done so, more so because I'm a weird dude. And when it comes to FIFA, I sometimes like to see what the CPUs are gonna do. So for me, it looked like this match was essentially 2 CPUs, 2 teams that have everything locked down in terms of technically, systematically, everything they've got it figured out. But no one, I think, really had that extra sort of cutting edge or extra little bit of magic to open this game up. And I know, Joe, I'll get to you for, I guess, what you think maybe changed this game. And I think it may be a substitution from Arsenal. But pretty much early on, I think it was, City kind of, both teams, I guess, having spells of possession. City, very early on, looked like they could have taken the lead. But essentially, it played out where it was 2 top teams at the top of the game, keeping the ball, not wanting to make a mistake, and just trying to find their sort of time to take the opponent by surprise and maybe inflict some sort of damage. But Gio, of course, we know how Arsenal got the win, but what changed the game for you, Gio? What was sort of the changing point for the result?
Yeah, no. I think for Arsenal side, it was obviously the Martinelli sub. I think as soon as he got on, he was hungry, wanting the ball, but more so taking defenders on one, kind of owning that side, cutting into the box. Cutting into the middle, having shots on target, getting balls into the box. I think it was super important. But I think on a grander scheme of things, we know Arsenal have depth, and we've talked about it. How once they become more cohesive, they're going to be an even stronger team. But I think going to what we even said prior to the season, how important KDB's injuries are going to be. It's it's showing, and we talked about how a Phil Foden or a Kovacic are going to have to step up and kind of fill that void because they lost OK Gundogan, and it hasn't been the case. Kovac is obviously. I know Mac mentioned it off camera. That very well could have been a red card, tackle on deck. So Man City obviously not known to making those rougher tackles or those very questionable tackles. It's either they win the ball, they don't win the ball, they take an honest foul, move on, and try to win the ball back again. And obviously we're going to talk about the gaping hole. That can't be filled by anyone because Rodri's missing. All those things combined, obviously, with that being said, a lot of people are saying, "Oh yeah, Man City was a favorite going into it." Yes, missing Saka was important, but I think the depth definitely helped Arsenal in the long run. So yeah, I think City are kind of in a spiral right now. I think they've lost almost. Wait, is it 3 straight domestically?
3 of the 4 last games.
3 of the last 4 games. That's big. That's not City like at all. And for Arsenal to come out and to stay on their game, even though the first half was not great at all, struggling to get out of their half, struggling to get out of their defensive third. For them to come out and win and to beat their demons in City, those were the games that they were missing last year. So for them to start off the season and to have a big win over City is huge for their title run.
Yeah, so let's go, I guess, a little bit more about what this means to Arsenal, Mac. Of course, you mentioned how for Arteta it was sort of a game that he definitely would have wanted to get the win for. Of course, he never really won against City as a manager. And, last year as well, I think City took all 6 points in the fixtures between Arsenal and City. It felt like to this game, this was the opportunity. I think the commentators kept bringing it back. This is the opportune time for Arsenal to finally get the win over City, to cement their sort of status as, we are here to challenge for the title. Of course, like Gio mentioned, Rodri, KDB, big injuries and big misses for City, but also Arsenal were without Saka. So what does this sort of result mean for Arsenal, in your opinion? And I guess what will this sort of result mean for them going forward, and can they take advantage of sort of having this monkey off their back moving forward and trying to chase down the title?
This game meant much more for Arsenal than it did for Manchester City, because even if they were to lose this game, and if we were to talk about what happens for Man City going forward, is that this is the first time they had lost back-to-back Premier League games since I think it's 2018, and right afterwards they went on to win 18 of their next 19 games. So they have an international break. They have Rodri coming back, KDB coming back from injury, so they can rip out a run. So we know that they're not gone. But let's say if Arsenal were to have lost this game, they're pegged back. The question's keeping it answered. What's different from since last year? Are they still able to kind of go over that hump? This kind of answers that question, even more so than the matchup in the Community Shield, because this is a Premier League game. So this was important for the psyche of the team, the psyche of the fans, and I guess the inner belief that, they're not just kind of the title challengers by default. They are the title challengers by merit, right? So I think this is a big step for them in that manner. Especially without Saka, because he's been their best player for the last couple of years. I think that's inarguable, as well as kind of how they build a lot of their offensive system around, where in this game, you see the ball going a lot to Gabriel Jesus on the right-hand side, because he was filling in and deputizing in that spot for Saka. It's not the same. It's a complete different feeling where Gabriel Jesus doesn't have like the tempo to be able to kind of get by his man consistently as Saka does to create openings for other players. So you felt like they're in the final third. They were a little bit missing that piece. So it takes them it gives them even further confidence and further validates a lot of different things. Like Martinelli coming back from injury, kind of how much of a key player was. The player that got the assist, Kai Havertz, having a great role coming in for a substitution. And the biggest part for me, and I know this, you guys might take this a little backhanded, but who's the one that played the ball through for Tomiyasu, who was also a sub? Thomas Partey. And I was a little bit frustrated about him not starting the game over Jorginho because, again, there is clear levels of quality there, but I won't harp on that too long. I think, again, and then even to take a step back, all 4 players involved in that buildup of that goal were substitutions from Arteta. So that further is going to kind of answer any people's questions about, okay, did he make mistakes towards the end of last year in terms of some rotations? Maybe because of injury, maybe because of poor decision making, and what potentially cost them the title. So again, I think this answers a lot of questions and garners a very positive feeling for Arsenal going forward. And like Man City are very happy that they're on international break, I think Arsenal just on the other side are kind of disappointed that they're going one-on-one because they could carry this momentum, but it does give a lot of their players time to rest and resettle, recon back down, and just focus on that next game. Especially because they came out with reports that Saka is going to be out for England duty, so he gets even more rest. So overall, I think this is, like I said, a big step forward. It's just one game. It's just 3 points. If they go on to lose the next game, then you're back where you were, right, in terms of points tally. So you need to have that consistency, but it's very important to get over this, the biggest hurdle in the Premier League and probably European football at the moment.
Yeah, and so, I, of course, thank you very much for giving us that sort of Arsenal point of view, but let's now focus, Gio, on the Man City point of view. 4 shots, 1 on target. Haaland essentially invisible in this game. And Mac mentioned, of course, the changes were very positive and had an effect for Arsenal in this game. The changes for City and even the starting lineup, yes, there are injuries, didn't scream a typical City to me. Yes, they had spells of possession, which of course Man City will always do in the Premier League, but the likes of John Stones, who's just come back from injury, Jeremy Doku, and Matheus Nunes really didn't do too much to change the game for City. In a game where really we expected them to at least garner a couple more chances, have a couple more shots on target with the sort of form that Julian Alvarez is on. Also, the quality that we know Haaland has shown in the last season. I think we would expect more, Gio, but even if the likes of Calvin Phillips, Jack Grealish came on in this game, I didn't really see them having a chance at all. So is there anything that we should be worried about at this point, Gio? I know you mentioned, Man City takes some time to get used to the league, and then when they come back, they come strong. But is it a different City this year, considering the amount of people that left the team? What do you think? What do you think, Gio?
Again, I think we touched on this before, but yeah, I think it is a completely different City, and I think it's going to take time, yes, but I think they will get there. Like Max said, they're going to go on their runs. We know it. We expect it. It's just a matter of when. Again, a couple of guys just need a look, a couple of confidence boosters, and they'll be right back in it. Would have liked to see Jeremy Doku a little earlier, maybe to alleviate that pressure from Phil Foden. It just seemed like everything was trying to run through Phil Foden, and Arsenal kind of knew that and was giving him trouble, doubling, kind of fouling him whenever they could, where they could, just to let them know that they know that he's the focal point. And again, Haaland, like you said, virtually invisible, always ready to look for that run, but doesn't really come and check in and help, or try to alleviate that pressure in the midfield. So I think that's definitely an aspect of the game that, that the league has noticed that they can exploit in Man City, which you're not going to find much to exploit in Man City. So maybe that's something they're going to have to work on for Haaland, say in the near future, or something he's going to look towards to try and fix. Maybe to look at during international duty as well, because it is the main focus. It is your job. So yeah, I don't think they should be worried. I think a lot of players will be coming back, especially Rodri, obviously serving his 3-game suspension there. But no, I don't worry too much about Man City. I more so worry about when they're going to go on their unbeaten run.
Yeah, I mean, it's inevitable, but definitely something that could happen. Mac?
I want to quickly jump in there. I think the question is Rodri. If they don't have him, can they play in the same way that they normally do. Because in this game, they played Bernardo Silva kind of in the Rodri role alongside Kovacic, who's more of a 6 when he's playing for Manchester City. And as we talked about earlier, lucky to be on the pitch. Whereas with Rodri, you just use one of him, and then it frees up an additional midfielder to be able to create like a front 5 press in a lot of ways. Versus in this game, you felt like City couldn't do that because Bernardo Silva and Kovacic had to be there. So if he's not playing, what do they do? If he sustains any injury, can they be successful as a team? Because of course, we joke about Calvin Phillips all the time. If I'm him, I'm gutted that I couldn't even get on the pitch. Rico Lewis had to be able to play there instead. So it's overall, I feel like it's disappointing that they haven't figured out that answer yet. Understanding he's one of the best players in the world, but the levels of drop off for a Man City team that spend as much money as they do to have it that deep, it does leave a question to be asked.
So I do agree as well, and of course, you guys know my take on Rodri and how important he is for City. I feel like this Arsenal team actually, the way they came out and approached this game was the perfect counter for this new City team that we've seen since the start of last season, where they are all about control. They have essentially 4 center backs, a group of midfielders that are going to control the ball, pass you to death, and find the overloads and sort of kill you with those killer passes. Whereas Arsenal did not let them do that at all. Defensively, they were there was not a fault I could find, and eventually they got their goal. And I'm not sure if this is a knock on Pep early this season. It is one game, and realistically, if they continue playing their style and they have all their players, they are going to go on that type of run. But I feel like maybe some teams might be looking at, maybe we play them at their own game. Of course, it's easier said than done, but could we match them up in terms of keeping possession and sort of denying them spacing behind, where they're really just forced to, maybe forced to create something off our own mistakes. But if we play a perfect game, there's not much for them to really get at us with. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what that changes. But of course, that means with this result, Arsenal go on to be top 2 in the league. But of course, there is another league leader in this weekend, and that is, of course, Tottenham Hotspurs. Gio, North London is now occupying the top 2 spots in the league, and I know Tottenham Hotspurs are not your favorite team, Gio, but let's hear from you. They, of course, were 1-0 winners against Luton Town through a goal by Mickey Van de Beek. What were your thoughts on how Spurs did this weekend, and also overall how impressive they've looked so far?
No, they still, apart from the red card, they were good but not great. I thought, they were putting the pressure on Luton Town, but I think Luton Town again had their fair amount of chances as well. Again, the Spurs team is still very beatable. It's more so their offensive threats that the league is more worried about. The versatility there is what put the league on notice. Defensively, I still think they're not a fantastic team. I don't think their defense is anything to write home about. But yeah, again, it's the play of Maddison, it's the play of Porro who is able as a right back to control the game. Still is very fun to watch. And then again, how they scored James Maddison again in fine form. Yeah. Do we know if he got an England call-up? Because I don't know if he got an England call-up.
That's a great question.
Hoping that he does. In fine form. 8 weeks in, maybe 1 week was a little off, but 7 out of 8 weeks he's been on par with any other player in the Prem. So without him, I think Tottenham don't have that level of success. So yeah. I don't like them as a team, but I do give credit where credit is due. And they've been playing fine football under Postecoglou.
For sure.
He did get a call up, by the way. For
fantastic.
Well deserved.
Fantastic. Well deserved. I love that.
Well deserved, of course. Yeah, I mean, the way they started the game, of course, getting a lot of chances, and they were always going to get a lot of chances against Luton Town. No disrespect to them, but when they kept missing chances, not putting them away, and then Busuma got that second yellow for diving, to say the least. I thought this would be the Spurs of the past. They're gonna fumble it, and then they're gonna lose to a newly promoted team. But props to them. They were able to hold on even through two big misses from Luton Town through Adebayo and Doughty. They were able to put away their chance, which I don't know how Madison had so much space inside the Luton box from a set piece, from a corner. But, you got to put your chances away. They did. And, of course, now they find themselves first in the table. So, Mac, what are your thoughts on sort of this fairy tale run that Spurs have? And can this be something that they can replicate and carry on moving forward?
I think you put it in your question there. It is a little bit much of a fairy tale right now. It's too good to be true for them, because in all reality, they should have lost this game. Luton missed a tap in on their end when the score was still at that point 0-0. To be able to get the red card, they created a kind of a multitude of chances. Pedro Porro missed a good opportunity. Kulusevski missed a good opportunity. Son missed a good opportunity. They couldn't just finish Spurs themselves. So even though I feel like they play well, they play an expansive style. They have a great coach, great manager to be able to kind of empower them to be able to play and express themselves. I still do question their clinical ability in the final third, where maybe some of the players are not up to snuff to be as consistent throughout the long stretch of season. They may go on a good run, but again, I think their only natural finisher, in my opinion, their whole team is Son, and if he's missing chances, you're gonna be in trouble. Richarlison missed a chance, kind of a early tap in the third minute as well. So I have a lot of questions about how successful this team's going to be. I think, again, I love how they play. I love the enthusiasm. I love the positive energy. I'm a little bit more skeptical in terms of how well it continue, because there isn't as much proof in the pudding. I think the one way that we can be wrong about this, and I could be wrong about this, is the Madison effect, because he is really the straw that stirs the drink. He is the metronome. He is the maestro. He's able to kind of pick the passes and create opportunities. If he's consistently doing that, then by those abundance of chances, it's kind of similar to what we talked about, where it's not dissimilar to Liverpool like 4 years ago, where because they create 20 chances a game, it doesn't matter if Salah's clinical or not. That doesn't matter if Mane's clinical or not. They're going to have so many chances, they're going to bag in a couple, even if they just go below expected goals. And I think that's the difference. If Madison and maybe Kulusevski, as creative players they have in the final third, are able to continually create 15, 20 shot opportunities for their teammates each game, then they're going to bag in enough goals. But again, I think against the bigger teams, that'll be probably a little difficult. And let's be honest, they should have lost against Liverpool. So I still think it's a little bit of a fairy tale. They have a little sprinkling of the fairy dust over them right now, and probably run dry soon.
Okay, well, Max brought, I guess, Spurs fans listening back down to earth. Not sure you guys saw the reports that there was a dog at Kenilworth Road, the stadium for Luton Town. Well, there was another dog in Spurs this weekend. So, of course, they go into this international break top of the table, and so we did have to mention them. But we're going to take a break now, and then we'll be back covering some more Premier League action. So stay with us, guys. Welcome back to Hustle Footy, guys. We are going to continue today's podcast now, discussing one of our co-hosts' favorite team. Gio, Manchester United were in action this past weekend, but also were in action for over the last couple of weeks. You unfortunately you missed a couple of the podcasts, so I think it's fair for us to open up this next section and give us your thought, Gio, on how Man U has been over the last game weeks since you've been on the podcast, and how a couple of those results have affected you. So, Gio, take it away.
Definitely, prior to coming into this week, mental health was in shambles. Obviously, 1-0 loss to Crystal Palace. You guys know about that. And then to lose it late after great comebacks, time and time again against Galatasaray, to Mauro Icardi's goals of all people. Why? Like, why me? Why me? Talks about Onana flying through Twitter. Just horrible. And especially Hodgson playing so well, showing his class, showing why we as a club decided to pay that much for him, being such a young talent and all. Just the whole clinical side of him, the ability to be able to hold up play, and the ability to take on players one-on-one, making those runs in behind, all of that. He is capable. We are seeing it live, and we're seeing it, displayed, differently each week. So for them to lose, a second Champions League game, definitely hurts. Doesn't look like they'll be making it much further in the group stages, past the group stages. So hey, maybe this is a sign to focus on the priority, and the priority is to be back in the competition next year. And how do you do that? Getting top four. Now, this week didn't look any better heading into it. Looked like a pile of hot garbage, to be honest. To me, it's the duel of having both Arambat and Casemiro on the pitch at the same time. I think going forward, it does kind of hinder Man United quite a bit. And then just in general, yes, Rashford didn't have the greatest game of his career, but he has bailed the team out far too many times for anyone to be pointing fingers at him at this point in time, this early in the season, 8 games in. He's done far more than you can ask for at this point. But that being said, I think they did control a majority of the game. I think that was a very poor clearance from Lindelof and a very poor save attempt by Onana. But what else is new? What else is new 8 weeks in? We thought, he had a great shot stopper, but also a great, keeper to play with his feet. He is neither of those things right now. But in classic United form, Scott McTominay subs in, plays, some minutes here and there, and then gets his chance. And he scores the first goal. First goal, fantastic. Okay, at least if it was a draw, fantastic. It was a tough one. We'll take it on the chin, move on to the next week. But for Bruno to put in a ball of that nature, and let's not forget who kept the play going, and that was a Mr. Harry Maguire, who, in fact, had quite a decent game. Let's be fair to that man. He has taken enough scrutiny, by me included. So, hey, don't get me wrong. Don't start coming for me. I am honest, and I'll keep it a buck. For him to keep it alive, that's great. Sandwiched in between two players. For him to not foul, I know in those situations, in the past, he typically, picks up a foul and, plays dead. But for him to keep it alive, and for McTominay to get his head on the ball, and listen, this is my main point of my whole rant, is that yes, United are 9th. Yes, they have, I think, 3 or 4 losses. Can't remember. It's all a blur to me now. But I have stressed that this season has been a season of fine margins that haven't gone their way. And that last header tipped onto the post and very well couldn't have gone their way. Could have bounced out, could have been saved and pushed out of bounds for another corner. But for that to go in, like a lot of Man U fans are hoping, like the announcer said, that this could very well could be the turning point for Man United. I think they are one of the other teams that are kind of down on the fact that yes, next week is international break. They won't be playing club football for the next little bit because this could be a very good turning point to be with the team, for the guys to be with the team, to try and figure out what's wrong and kind of focus on the games coming up. So luckily to escape with a win, very fortunate to escape with a win, or a draw for that matter. But to pick up 3 points was huge because another loss would have been detrimental to not only the fans' mental health, but Mr. Eric Ten Hag's job occupancy. So with that being said, I will pass it back to you, boys.
Hey, man. So I'm going to be completely honest. Man U Brentford was definitely not on my list to watch when I woke up Saturday morning.
Not even for me. Not even for me.
But gotta hand it to you. Brentford took the lead 1-0, and of course, I had to drop everything I was doing and put the Man U game on. And yeah, I'm glad I did. Of course, you brought up a lot of great points, Gio. The form that Man U have been in going into this game, definitely not great. Them conceding at home in a game where they really just need a win, not a great look. And the longer it went, sort of things not really working for them, a host of substitutions, Rashford coming off in a game where I actually don't think I've seen him come off for Man U in a game recently. To tells a lot, I feel like. And so with all those things going sort of not Man U's way, for them to get that win at the end through Scott McTominay, yeah, it's a great positive result at the time being. Now we can look at it a little bit further, of course. I think, Gio, what you mentioned about Man U getting a win now and having that break, I think it serves Man U a lot of positive energy moving forward, because, of course, you're not in action, but also the media is not going to be focused as much about you when you're not playing. So you're now off the back of a positive result. There's a little bit of break, and hopefully for Man U fans and Man U players all around, they can figure something out and put sort of one foot in front of the other and hopefully pick up some form. Because, Mac, honestly, if they lost this game, it would have been a disaster for the international break fully through to the next game week. So, sort of, what is the importance of this win for Man U, Mac, and yeah, what does this all mean for them? Should they look at this as a positive? Is this sort of yeah? I guess what can they pick up from this?
So I will go positive first because I feel like I want to be a little bit nice. Manchester United, I think the important part is that this win was, and I think you highlighted it correctly, is that if they had lost this game or even come out with just a draw, it would have been the next 2.5 weeks of just bashing on Man U, just Ten Hag, job security, Onana, De Gea is still a free agent, blah, 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 blah. That would have just been the talk for the next couple weeks. This kind of keeps things at bay and puts everyone on a pause, relax, calm, and come back from the international break, hopefully with a different, a positive spin and a little bit of positive attitude. In terms of their impact on the Premier League for themselves, if you're realistic, it's still early days. There are only 5 points out of being in the top 4. Like, it's not, of course, there's a lot of teams between them and the top 4, but they're not that too far away from kind of the pack that they are inevitably chasing. So just like they did at the beginning of last year, having a horrible start, they have time to turn it around. So there's a lot of positives, and picking up this win in the manner that they did can kind of garner a lot of positive vibes in and around the locker room, the dressing room. The player that he did, because he's one of the players I would argue that gets bashed on the most, Scott McTominay, from Manchester United fans for his roles over the last year, like the mid-frag jokes. I love them. Love to have them around. But he's he's been with the club since he's been 8 years old, coming up through the youth academy. To have that moment is probably ginormous for him. Question being is he going to start the next game? Probably not. Let's be honest. I would be surprised if he does. Or is there going to be a change of shape? Who's good? There's so many questions for this Manchester United team, but they got 3 points. They can at least take a step forward from there. However, I do want to highlight something that Gio said, is that this season has been fine margins for Manchester United. Because realistically, they've won just a couple of games. I want to be able to just quickly run through their wins and how things could have been different. They won 1-0 against Wolves. Onana should have got a red card. Clearly. They won 3-2 against Nottingham Forest, who had a 2-0 lead and had to get a red card to then put them back into the game. And then, of course, the game against Crystal Palace in EFL Cup placed the B squad. So has there been a real test where they've come out on top and done well? No. They've been very, very fortunate, and it could have gone so much worse than it already has, and it's gone already very, very bad. So I think Ten Hag, the good part is he does have these couple of weeks. He needs to have a reset. He needs to have people come back from injuries. They need to figure out how they're going to play, because they've talked about trying to be the world's greatest transition team. That's kind of this catchphrase that he's been talking about. They're not able to do it against these smaller teams when they have the ball. How can you be in transition when you have the ball? And against the good teams, you're not good enough to be able to compete with them. So there is so much gray area. They spent so much money in their squad. So there has to be better. The levels have to be better. And I think right now, I don't think people should be asking questions about Ten Hag, but because they did get that win, at least that'll be put on pause. But if things continue like this, let's say the last 2 months plays out in the future 2 months, then I think you're going to get a lot of trouble spots going into January where people are going to ask, is he the manager that we want to invest in now? And then if you're changing manager again, you're starting back from zero all over again, and how difficult it was to be able to get a quality manager. And I would argue he still is. So I think that result, great, positive for Manchester United, but I have so many questions. It's weirdly enough, I have more questions about them than I do about Chelsea, who we may talk about later. And they're above them on the table. And I would argue they have better players, but I have more questions because I don't know what the hell they're trying to do. So I don't think, to be honest, I don't think anyone at the club, at least what we can see right now, knows what they're trying to do. But today, I'm very Scottish today. Good job, Scott McTominay.
Yeah. There's definitely a host of questions about a number of players on that Man U side, and I know Gio, you did speak briefly about Rashford, but of course we've seen him and Bruno not hit the heights that they've had over the last year and a half. I would argue. Could it be that Ten Hag? I guess the question is, can Ten Hag afford to drop either of them in the next couple of weeks, moving forward, to see if something changes? Because obviously something needs to change, and if of course, Hodgson is looking great, but if Rashford and or Bruno Fernandes are not looking that great, and they need some time out of the pitch, do you think Ten Hag has sort of the backing and can allow himself to do that, considering that if he doesn't get results, his job is on the line? What do you think about that, Gio?
I think he just I know he's trying to kind of create structure back in the squad. That managers in the past have kind of lost the dressing room, things of that nature. And for good clubs they need structure, and I think he's trying to earn that respect. But by doing so, he's kind of creating separation between players, and yes, you're gonna have to find ways to win with players and without certain players. If he needs to try, Rashford coming off the bench, that's a little risky in my opinion.
Right.
But that's very risky in my opinion, because if it doesn't work, it's why the hell are you not starting your, arguably your best player on the squad? So I still think he is getting that flack. With the whole Jadon Sancho situation. I'm not going to say who's right or wrong, but I understand what he is doing. He's trying to create structure, and hey, if that's the way you want to manage your squad, that's the way you want to manage your squad. But I think he needs to kind of sort out those certain situations early, because it seems like he does have his favorites, and his favorites are getting away with a lot, including poor form on the pitch, poor form with the media, things of that nature, and again, they seem to be locks in his starting 11. So with that being said, I just think he needs to take these this week or so to kind of figure out, hey, this is how we're gonna have to go about it. Maybe I need to reach out to Jadon and kind of hash things out with him and see if we can get on the same page about something to try and work this out, because right now it's obvious that they lack depth and they lack a lot of skill going forward as well. The defense is what it is right now. There's a lot of injuries, but if they're gonna have to beat teams, the only way you're gonna beat teams these days is gonna score more goals than them, because teams are very talented. Strikers, midfielders are taking shots from way further out, and taking those chances. And if you're down 1-0 or 0-1, you're gonna have to find a way to score, and he's gonna have to figure out to put his best players out on the pitch.
I agree. It's tough because he's fighting in multiple fronts. He's fighting with a personal situation with a different player, injuries, and of course lack of form from other players. So it's definitely not a job I would want to be in at the moment. But it will definitely be the next couple months. We'll be able to tell if he's the right man for the job and if he has what it takes to sort of change the fortunes around at Man United. But I like what you said about teams sort of needing to score to win games. And of course, we're going to move on now, Mac, to a 2-2 draw between Brighton and Liverpool. Two teams that looked like they were going to score more than just the two goals that were on display. A host of mistakes leading to, of course, a number of the goals that took place here. But what were your takes on this game overall, Mac? A fair result for Brighton and Liverpool to share points?
In some ways, because I think that Brighton versus Liverpool overall, it was an exciting game. It felt like, in some ways, the antithesis to what Man City and Arsenal are playing, where it was the same style in terms of ultra high press, still going to force it to be able to play throughout the back, but there was more kind of a higher tempo where they were looking to be able to kind of chase each other down. And there was a plethora of chances for both teams, and could have gone in so many different ways, depending on who finishes what chances were presented to them. Where I felt like very early on, I would argue for up until Mo Salah scores in the 40th minute, Brighton were 100% dominating this game and creating everything. Whereas then in the second half, after Klopp had made some changes at halftime, where you felt even though Liverpool were up 2-1 and ended up tying the game, they were in control for large portions of the second period. So I think that this game was exciting, great, loved all the action from it. I guess my major talking point, and I want to be able to talk to you about it, Ray, and just kind of swing it back to you. Do you think that should have been a red card for Mo Salah? I'm sorry, not for Mo Salah. Who was it? It was Dunk, I think that fouled.
Szoboszlai had the penalty?
Yes, because that was the major talking point coming out from the Liverpool camp. Because again, the headline, every headline I saw is that referees doing Liverpool again, and I just want to be able to, how do you feel about that? I want to know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, guys, I am a Liverpool fan, but much like Gio would say as well, I'm a conscious Liverpool fan, and of course, Mac, you and I had this conversation. Guys, the referees are not here in a conspiracy and an agenda to be against your team. They're trying to do the best job that they can. So if we ever do bash referees, we do apologize and we respect the hard job that you have at stake. That being said, that should definitely not. I'm kidding. No, I don't think it should be a red card. He gets pulled back. It is a goal scoring opportunity, but if I can remember this correctly, the goalkeeper is also there. He doesn't have a clear goal scoring chance yet. He's still sort of trying to recover the ball and get to it first. And so I don't think so. The penalty was given, was converted, and I think that's sort of the end of the story. And I think that's a fair representation of how the game was. Very, very back and forth. A lot of chances coming off of mistakes, which, like you said, Mac, a lot of what City and Arsenal played out was two very cautious teams in their approach to their game. But Liverpool, Brighton, they were all trying to just force something from the other team, which of course ended up happening. I think all 4 goals, you can argue, came off of mistakes, and so in a game where that happens, you really have to look at, hey, were the offenses for both teams that good, or were the defenses that bad? That's a question I can't really answer at this moment, but I did want to highlight 2 individual players, and one, of course, is Baleba for Brighton. Fantastic game. I think he's 20 years old, getting his debut for Brighton in the Premier League, and so he came in, did great for Brighton, and I think that's going to be a very interesting player to keep an eye out for moving forward. And on the flip side, for Liverpool, Szoboszlai. I completely understand all the hype now in terms of what he can offer to the team on the right hand side. It's a long sort of I guess type of analysis that I won't get into at the moment, but I think he does complement some of that Trent and Salah dynamic on the right hand side, and that's something I'm interested in moving forward, seeing how that goes. So it's going to be fun watching these 2 teams. As a neutral, if you guys are out there, neutrals listening, I think these 2 teams are going to be very fun to see how they progress moving forward. But yeah, I feel this game, either team could have won it. Fair result, I think, on the day. A tie should be the fair result. Gio, what did you think about the game, if anything stood out to you?
Sorry, Gio, before you actually jump in, I just want to... Baleba, 19 years old, so that's Brighton have actually played 5 teenagers in the Premier League so far this year. Every other team combined, 7. So, again, how they're able to just churn out quality like this is phenomenal, and I do agree, because we were messaging together about Baleba. Phenomenal. First game, debut against Liverpool to be common possession like that. Lovely to see. But sorry, go ahead, Gio.
I think I have a differing opinion. I don't think I think Liverpool should be a little disappointed on not being able to escape with 3 points. Look, they have their chances. Although they're putting goals up on scoreboard, I think there was a little frustration even coming in after that Europa League game where they had a plethora, and by plethora I mean they had enough chances for 3 games, and they could only put away 2, which is a little shocking for a front line. As I would argue, I would argue and say that they are considered clinical. To only put away 2 goals, I think there's a little frustration there. But to come into the game, to kind of almost show your cards and blatantly display that we still have
a great lack of defensive issues. The awareness, the accountability is just it's tough, and it's now that I've seen this, I can only question this. How many times is your offense or your front three gonna bail you out in these games? Yes, they did this week, and you were able to manage to scrape away a draw, but how many more weeks can they save? Letting that last goal from Lewis Dunk, not even being able to get a touch on it, I think very poor. They were kind of like heads on hands, kind of looking at each other. Wait, nobody had that ball. Passing four players, and then for Lewis Dunk to make that run quite freely into the box, surrounded by players, but players that were pretty much standing still at that point. So, if I'm a Liverpool fan, yes, you got a draw, but I think you're quite disappointed with the draw because it easily could have been 2 extra points for you, cementing you in that 3-4 position for weeks to come. So, yeah, no, I think Liverpool should be quite disappointed with this one. I think Brighton, if anything, should be quite happy that they escaped with the draw.
Yeah, no, actually, that's I think a fair analysis as well. Of course, the defensive sort of mistakes are still there, present for Liverpool, and I think we highlighted this still in the season preview. There's still going to be, even though Liverpool are going to score goals, there are still going to be questions of the back end. Of course, the season's long. That's something that they're going to try to they have to figure out if they want to continue doing well in the season and finish as high as possible on the table. So that's something we'll keep an eye out for sure on. But guys, we're going to take one last break here, and then we'll be back just touching on some notable results around the Premier League as well. So stay with us, guys. Welcome back to Hustle Video, guys. We are going to continue today's podcast and now just touch on some notable results from this weekend's Premier League action. Gio, pick a game and give us your thoughts on that game.
West Ham versus Newcastle. Obviously, you guys know, if you guys listen, you guys know I'm a huge fan of Jared Bowen, a huge fan of West Ham and what they have to bring. Hey, I think they're sitting seventh, is it? Seventh in the table right now. Coming from what they achieved last year, I think sitting seventh in the table, 8 games in, I think they should be quite happy. They were struggling a lot in the Prem last year. And for Jared Bowen and all these guys to come back and play this well is I'm happy for them. Thomas Suchek, of all people, to be in the middle that far up the pitch is shocking to me. But hey, man, this guy's trying to earn a new contract or something because this guy has no business being in the box, that dead in the middle. And for to be covering him, hey, it was meant to be. But credits to Newcastle, obviously on a high after winning quite the game against PSG in the Champions League. You would kind of expect them to come, with a bit more energy in terms of, trying to get goals again. They scored 4 in the Champions League. But again, it's that depth. It's the you don't know who's gonna turn it on. It could be Callum Wilson, Almiron. It could be Bruno Guimaraes. But this time again, it was Isaac who again with the double and he's just very clinical around the box, tight corners. He's able to get his foot on the ball. So I think this was one of the games that was very deserving of a draw. Both teams played quite well. Both missed chances here and there, but as a neutral for both of them, I think it was a quite entertaining game.
Yeah, just quickly before Mac is able to go, Alex Isak, 7 matches, 6 goals in the Premier League so far, 24 years old. Could be the real deal moving forward. But yeah, no, that's great result, I think, for West Ham, though, to get the tie at the end with Kudus, because Newcastle, we thought they would have a little bit of a lag from the last game, even though they finished on such a high. This game, of course, they have to travel to London and face West Ham away. Dominating possession, and in a season after last season's where they were sort of not the team that you would associate with dominating possession for most of the game. And so credits to West Ham for actually getting their goals and keeping this a contest overall. But Mac, what are your thoughts?
about that individual game, I thought that it was a fair result at the end of the day. You just pointed, I think, Giozzi talked about with Newcastle coming off the high of being able to beat PSG, having a great run of form, to concede 2 goals in this game against the West Ham team, which we know are not the biggest goal threat. It is not a great look, but I think overall for the Premier League as a whole, apologies, this creates like an exciting feature for where kind of more teams are in it. Apologize, I'm slowly dying. Aren't we all? But yeah, it's more about, it creates more a position where any team can really beat any team, and that's the feeling that you get in the Premier League, where now both these teams are going to be potentially chasing down to European spots. Yes, they both are in that in their own respective competitions, but it creates definitely more of kind of a level playing field in a lot of ways. I think though in this game, and I think the big part that comes out for West Ham is that you do see them being able to kind of ingratiate their players and keep their players. I think Jared Bowen signed another 7-year contract. I think that just came out today. This is, I think, already agreed to, of course, before this result. Them being able to Paquetá, keep him, kind of make sure that Man City were to be able to get on that and get on him after losing Declan Rice. So you're talking about keeping high quality players that have been chased after by other teams, with the potential to continue to bring in more players as well. So I think that West Ham are definitely on the upward trajectory, it feels like, and maybe as the season goes along, and maybe even as the years goes along, might become more and more of a threat because of what they've been able to do these last couple seasons. So great to see that result. If I were to quickly touch about a different game, I just like Erling Haaland did, I'm going to look how much Chelsea fans, you guys won 4-1 against Burnley. To quickly jump in there, and every single one of those goals was a Burnley mistake. You did nothing great. There was nothing phenomenal about what Chelsea did. Every single goal that they scored was a Burnley mistake. Yes, it looks great because Man U just barely, did they lose to Burnley? What was it? Maybe I'm having flashbacks. What happened with the Man U Burnley game? Man U ended up beating Burnley. No, or they lost.
No, they won. Okay,
I'm sorry. I apologize. I apologize. So, but point being, again, not the greatest of teams right now. They still have a lot of questions. I think Burnley are, I actually had them pegged at being a much better team thus far this year because of their expansive play style, but it seems that they're not up to snuff, and they leave a lot of holes at the back. And Chelsea, specifically Sterling, were able to expose them. Is this going to happen every week in the Premier League where you're kind of gifted chances like this? No. So again, it's great for the result. Similar in some ways to the Manchester United one, where it's going to create more of a positive feeling going into the international break. But in reality, you're still in like a deep, dark hole, and you have to slowly dig yourself up, and you kind of just stood up in the hole in a way, and now you have to work out actually climbing because you really faced one of the worst teams in the Premier League thus far this year. So again, didn't do much. So let's slow down, figure things out. You really don't have any really answers yet. But I think though, like on the other side, if I were to be a little positive towards Chelsea, is that this is great for Pochettino. Again, people were already starting to ask questions, which I think is obscene and crazy, and nowhere near close to that conversation, given the quality of manager he is. But it'll give him more time, and I think that's key.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to be a little bit more positive for Chelsea, saying, Sterling had a great game. I think it was involved in pretty much all the goals that Chelsea did get. So to pat myself on the back as well, a player that I thought Chelsea were really depending on for this season on how they will do well, of course, Sterling. And if he's going to continue this run of form, hopefully that's something that they can build on. Still, of course, bottom half of the table. So any kind of result and sort of run of games that they win will be a positive here. But that's pretty much all I have to say for Chelsea Burnley. Gio, anything stand out from you for this game?
No, I just like, yes, it is against Burnley. Let's just clear the air with that. Yes, it was against Burnley, but I think just over the past couple of weeks where they're able to get other players in and involved, where they're actually scoring goals, and with Mudryk finally scoring his first Chelsea goal, monkey off the back, ice broken. Broha, obviously, with the terrible knee injury coming back, scoring a goal for them to get that win. Also, very big for confidence. I think they did lack confidence, and that's one of the biggest things. So for them to get Nicholas Jackson involved, Raheem Sterling involved, those key guys that you're planning to build this team around is very important. I think the next guy that you wish and pray get going is Enzo Fernandez, because at this point in time, Harry Maguire has 1 assist, and Enzo Fernandez has 0. So keep that in mind, folks. Keep that in mind, folks, because all I saw, when Chelsea won and scored is like, Chelsea has this many goals in October and Man U have 0. It was the start of October and Man U haven't played yet. We get it. It was a great joke. But look where we're at now, folks. Harry Maguire has an assist. Enzo Fernandez does not. So I think it's great for Chelsea. Obviously, confidence is all they really needed. And once they get going and they believe in one another, I think, Chelsea's going to be flying.
Yeah, for sure. And so, that's pretty much wraps up our podcast for today. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe to us on our social medias, both on X and Instagram. That's at @houseof_footy. If you have any comments, suggestions, or general banter, get in touch with us via email as well, houseoffooty@hotmail.com. Next time you hear from us will be Thursday when we switch things up a little bit and we'll bring you some new content. So be on the lookout for that. But until then, thank you, Mac, for joining us.
Colin's living in Sleeper's pocket tonight. That's where he's sleeping.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, Gio. Welcome back.
Please, England, give Madison some minutes.
Yes. And see you guys soon.